Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of UTV. And I have a very special guest today, Sherry Bustos, who's just joined our board at Ullico. How are you, Sherry?
I'm doing great. Great to see you, Ed.
Thanks. Great to see you too. Um, Corey's our producer director, and we were visiting a little bit before we started filming today. So we're going to introduce Sherry to everybody. But before we do, today is Employee Appreciation Day. So I want to tell all the employees, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do every day. You're the not so secret sauce that makes our company doing so well. So I hope everybody knows how much they're appreciated, and so you even got a day named after you. So Employee Appreciation Day is your day today, and so congratulations on that. You're going to see this next week, next Wednesday, the 8th, I think, is the International Women's Day, and I'm going to ask Sherry some questions about as a woman serving in Congress and her role in that. So why don't we just get started? And Sherry, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, happy to do that. And also, as far as your employees, we all appreciate you because Ullico is so important to our labor families. So thanks for all you do. And as far as being a woman in Congress, I don't know what it's like to be a man in Congress. So I guess
Good point. Good point, Sherry.
But yeah, so I am the first woman to have represented this the congressional district, which I had for the previous 10 years. I made a decision not to run for re-election, so I was in office for 5 terms. I'm proud to say I've never lost an election. Ed, you and I both have that competitive spirit in common. So I'm highly competitive in the fact that I've never lost an election, including 2 for city council in East Moline, Illinois. I'm proud of that. But grew up in a home with where our belief was always that my dad instilled this in us from the time we were young. But if it weren't for organized labor and the Democratic Party, we wouldn't have a middle class. And that's not a line that probably a lot of folks who work at Ullico haven't heard, but that was instilled with us. My dad used to say that the only time he saw his father cry, and his father was a World War I vet. He was pretty old when my dad was born. And he said the only time he saw him cry was when my dad and his mom went out to the cornfield where my grandfather was out harvesting, or he was planting or harvesting. I don't know which, but was out in the cornfield. And my grandma told him that FDR had died. And so that's the only time he saw his dad died, because of how much he did for families to get them back on their feet. So that's what I was instilled with. On a professional background, I worked at a newspaper, a local newspaper, for a good part of my career, then worked in healthcare, and then went to Congress. And my roots in Illinois are deep. We have 3 sons, 3 daughters-in-law, 3 grandkids. I had a brother who coached at Southern Illinois University, coached baseball down there. And my sister, Lynn, was a court reporter out of Central Illinois. But we were born in Illinois, raised in Illinois. We still live in Illinois. So we've got pretty deep Midwestern roots, and very proud of our love of labor as well.
Sherry, I grew up the same way you did. My mom and dad were both came up through the Depression. They thought, and my dad, I remember him telling me the story when FDR died. It was like the only president he'd ever known. When Roosevelt got elected in 32, my dad was 18, and then he died in 1945. And so all that time, from the time my dad was 18 up until I guess he was in his 30s then, that he'd only had that one president. And times were so hard and so tough that it was, they all worked on WPA. They were all worked, on programs that the Roosevelt administration brought forward. And that's why they're Democrats. And my mom, she was Democrat county chairwoman in our Alexander County, which is the most southern county in the state. she had me stuffing envelopes for Paul Simon back in his first run for Congress in 74 election, I think it was. Anyway,
Good taste in people, though, Ed. Good taste in
yeah,
people.
well, we grew up, and I knew for our employees, I knew Sherry's dad. He was public service, public service, public service. He worked for Senator Alan Dixon. He was a great friend of labor and a great friend of mine. We used to always go to the St. Louis Cardinal game together every year, and so 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 Sherry, you're right where you need to be on this ULICO board serving labor because it's in your heart, and I know you're passionate about it. So, hey, Sherry, tell them a little bit about the district that you serve, because and,
Yeah.
and you mentioned when we had our board of directors recently, you mentioned how many labor households, which I thought was really amazing. But tell them a little bit where that district was.
Sure, sure. So I have lived in we call it the Illinois Quad Cities, but Moline, Rock Island, for most of my adult life. I grew up in Springfield, but moved to Moline, Illinois, for my job at the newspaper. And so the district, the Quad Cities, which is along the Mississippi River, that would be the right kind of in the center. But the district goes all the way east to Peoria, south to Fulton County, if you know where that is, and then follows the Mississippi River south of the Quad Cities and then north of the Quad Cities all the way up to where I am right now in Galena, but where Wisconsin and Iowa and Illinois come together, then hugs the Wisconsin state line, goes over to the Rockford area. So
Okay.
it's 14 counties, it's big geographically, but if you are more rural, it takes more space to make up the 700-ish thousand people that make up a congressional district. So 7,000 square miles, very rural. The three biggest towns are Rockford, the Rock Island, Moline, and then Peoria, but between very much rural. That said, we are a very heavy union district, 90,000 labor households. So it is one of the heaviest labor districts in the entire country. And so I used to tell, when anybody from the IBEW or the sheet metal workers or, the letter carriers, or anytime anybody associated with organized labor would come out to Washington to do a sit down, I'd always meet with them, first of all, but I'd always say, you don't need to lobby me. You really don't, because I'm there with you.
Right.
This is in my heart. This is in my soul, but it is a very heavy labor district. Part of that, Ed, is because the world headquarters for John Deere is right in the heart of the district in Moline, Illinois. We have a Chrysler plant right outside of Rockford, and then we have Caterpillar, a very big Caterpillar presence in the Peoria area. So UAW, we have more UAW members than any other of the unions, but strong with UFCW because we have meatpacking plants. We are strong with IBEW. So you look at the various unions, and we're strong just all the way around, and I'm very proud of that.
Sure, you're for most of our employees are on the East Coast. I'd say, we're all over the country. We're out west. Our Chicago office is big, New York office. We have employees, but for our employees, this is the heart of the Midwest. When you think about just what you said, Sherry, John Deere headquarters, Caterpillar down in Peoria, is Belvedere where Chrysler plant was, and then the meatpacking industry, which was all in my day. I'd go up there; they were the meat cutters, and then they merged, became United Food and Commercial Workers, and so it's that area that really working people, raised their kids, joined the middle class, all of those things because they were members of unions, and unions fought to make sure they had safe jobs and good paying jobs and health care and retirement benefit, all the things that we stand for.
That's right.
Reflected right in your district. So it's for our employees to picture where your district was. Think of the heart of Midwest manufacturing, and it's had its challenges because we've had our challenges with the manufacturing leaving, going offshore and things like that. So it's a fight. I have a saying, it's a fight every day, because the day you think you got everything under control, something else pops up and you're right back in the fight.
How
So
true.
yeah, so that was your district. Sherry, talk to me about a little bit. I remember when you were head of the DCCC, and I know you served. I'm a big admirer of Speaker Pelosi, and I there was never any labor legislation that we were trying to get passed that she didn't get passed. Now, too many times it failed in the Senate, but there was no doubt that when she agreed to help us, she helped us, and you served with her, and I know she was a fan of yours. She wouldn't have appointed you at a DCCC, and I know she got to know you well, and I think about her. I think about the role that women play in Congress, Democrat Party, and the labor movement, things like that. Talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Well, so the DCCC is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and it's basically the political arm of House Democrats. And I ran that at one point in my time in Congress, and that meant that every fly-in day, and we call it fly-in day when we go from our home district out to Washington D.C. when we're going to have votes. My first meeting of the day would be to sit down one-on-one with Speaker Pelosi, and for a half an hour to go over what was ahead for the week, what happened the week before, and to look at the political landscape. And I'll tell you, Ed, it was, as I look back at my 10 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, that those were moments that I relish. Really remarkable woman. And since we're talking about, the Women's Day, and looking at women and reflecting back on what women have done, I mean, she's a historic figure. First female Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, first and only right now. I hope she's not the last. And but really remarkable, strong woman. And if there's any advice that, and she doesn't offer this as advice, but it's just to watch it. Think about being beaten up publicly every single day,
Right.
and yet you stand up and you go on and you do your job, and you just, like, she literally was like kind of a gnat, kind of flying around like, whatever.
Right.
And I really think that that is really an important lesson, really, if you're a woman or a man for that matter. But you just can't let things that other people are saying, especially the untruths and the petty things, you just can't let that get to you. And I took that away. I saw that in her every single day that I worked with her.
I couldn't agree more. She was always had a target on her back, and it wasn't her personally. They were targeting us, what we believed in, things we were fighting for, and she was our leader, and she was your leader. But she also she had such a compassion for labor and workers, that the healthcare, children.
Yeah.
When you look at all the things that she was so passionate about, those are all our core beliefs, and she was so a lot of us have those core beliefs, but nobody was as effective, on getting them across the finish line. She had a great career, and I'm a big admirer, as you can tell, of her. And I envy you having those 30-minute meetings with her, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was historic. So, well, Sherry, what do you think about joining our ULICO board?
Oh gosh, Ed, I when you called me and asked if I was interested, I don't know if you remember this, but I didn't even really have to think too hard, because, like, yes.
Yeah.
Post Congress, I want to make sure that I am doing meaningful work. And
Sure.
it is really important to me. Like, I still want to stay involved in politics, and I'm doing that in various ways. I wanted to be able to be in a position to help those in organized labor. And you have given me this opportunity, so I could not be more thrilled. On a personal level, and I said this at the board meeting when we got together and I was introducing myself, but I have 3 sons. My youngest son was a welder in a non-union shop. This was when he was first getting started out, and he saw a buddy of his get injured, and just kind of like really disposed of is the way I would say it, not taken care of, no compassion, no, we're going to cover your health care. We're going to make sure, that everything's right. No training. So I told him, I'm like, Joey, you've got to get on with a union. He was in his early 20s then. I said, you've got to get on with a union because that will be your future. You'll have health care, you'll have dental care, you'll have a retirement. You will, if you get injured, you will be taken care of. And you will be trained. Safety, safety, safety. So he is now in his last year of his apprenticeship, his 5th year as a sheet metal worker. And he has bought a house. He has gotten married. He just bought some land. He goes on weekend trips all the time. And, so he's got a great income. He's got great health care. And that is because of organized labor. And so on a very personal level, Ed, when you called me and you asked me to be on the board, and then the board was kind enough to accept me, no, I'm thrilled, and I'm very much looking forward to the future, and I will do my best to help make a difference.
I know that, and we're thrilled to have you. That story you told about your son is the American story. I always say, look, when we have, I give speeches sometimes. What if America looked like the labor movement? And you think about just what you said: jobs where you can buy a house, jobs where you can raise your children, jobs where you have full family health care, retirement. I know went through the apprentice. He's going through the apprentice program. No student debt. It's the union and the employers pay for that whole education. It's what we stand for. And you see, he's paying taxes. He's
Yes.
contributing to society. So, well, that in a nutshell is what we stand for. And Sherry, I'm going to wrap this up and just say thank you. I want to. One of these days we'll have maybe our shareholder meet somewhere. I want to introduce you personally to all our employees. You'll love them, and they'll love you. So thanks for taking the time this morning.
Thank you, Ed, and happy Women's Day, and again, happy Employee Appreciation Day. It's all a day to celebrate.
Right. I agree. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you,
Take
Ed.
care. See you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.